In today's show, Andy Patton from Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Zags joins the program, and we talk about who you need to know in the college basketball season. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Up, world! It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You are listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you every single weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we are going to talk college hoops. It's here. It's Thanksgiving week, which means it's feast week for the branded college hoops world. But really, it means that me, someone who hasn't watched a lot of college basketball, I'm going to tune in. I'm going to tune in because there's going to be big basketball games this week. So to join me in today's program, I'm going to bring on Andy Patton, host of Locked On College Basketball, host of Locked On Zags, someone who talks about college basketball for a living 10 times a week, and probably a lot more in his free time as well. That's what we're going to do in today's show. Talk about, as a Blazer fan, who to watch, who to know, some options that might be coming up for him, because it's time to get your scout on. They just lost a game by 43. It's time to start scouting the college hoops scene. Before we get into that, though, there is some minor news in Blazerland. Malcolm Brogdon is moved off of the out designation to questionable. And I feel good about Malcolm Brogdon playing Tuesday against the Phoenix Suns. You were listening to Tuesday, November 21st show. I appreciate your patronage because Jamari Bouye, the nominal third string backup point guard, is still with the Rip City remix. He is not being called up. They're keeping him with the remix. Malcolm Brogdon has been out for a couple weeks with a hamstring strain, moved from out to questionable. I think Malcolm's going to play. That's going to help a whole lot because they need other people who can dribble. And Malcolm Brogdon, if nothing else, is pretty good at dribbling. He can score. He'll help them many of their woes. He might not fix everything, but he'll certainly be helpful. For the Suns, Brad Beal, Yuta Watanabe still out along with Damian Lee. For the Blazers, Scoot Henderson, Avery Simons. For courtesy, I'll mention Rob Williams, but he's out for the year, so we don't need to talk about him. Okay, let's talk college hoops. And joining me now to do just that, none other than the man himself, Andy Patton from Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Zags. Andy, how you doing?
I am good. I was at the Blazers game on Monday evening, and I got there a little bit late, and it was 47-25 Thunder. I was there for my guy, Chet Holmgren, of course, as a Gonzaga person. It was fun to see him play. But yeah, I get why we're moving on to talk about some college hoops already with this season.
Yeah, so if you were a little bit late, so that's like early second quarter, maybe. Yeah. So by the time the Blazers kind of waved the white flag with 4 minutes left in the third quarter, so you saw 20 minutes of NBA basketball before it shifted to a G League game. That's tough. Yeah. I bet you didn't expect it to be a 40-point loss. No. You follow the Blazers close enough to know that they weren't going to be maybe really good, but 40 is a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I love Jamari Bouye. You mentioned him at the top. San Francisco guy. I watched him a lot in college, and I'm excited that he's with the team. But he shouldn't be getting legitimate minutes for a team that's trying to win basketball games. But I love getting a chance to watch him play NBA basketball, even though I know that it's not exactly an environment where teams that are in the playoffs are not playing Jamari Bouye for the entire fourth quarter all that often.
I mean, Jamari Bouye has not looked good enough to play for the Blazers, who very well might be the worst team in the NBA. It's been tough. It's been tough sledding for a boy. I too am a fan. I watched him play that one game in the NCAA tournament when he had 36 against Wichita State, and I was like, this dude rocks. Like, he's so good. I love him. And he has not rocked in the NBA. But you are here to talk college hoops. We're going to get into it all episode long. I realize at the top of this draft, it's a lot of G League Ignite names. We will save that for another day. Me and you can go to an Ignite game, and yes. I think they come in January. We can go check out Ron Holland and Matas Buzelis and the gang, Ethan Almanza. Yeah, see, I've been scouting, y'all. I've been reading the boards. I know know the Ignite guys. But Andy, I am not someone who watches college basketball. I watch Carolina. I've been able to scout Lehigh and UC Riverside, but this is the big week, right? Carolina's in the Bahamas. Everyone is college basketball teams are somewhere warm. They're playing big games. If you are a Blazers fan, hold on. Let me set the stage a little bit. The Blazers are very likely to have their own pick in the draft. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Spoiler alert. They're going to have their own lottery pick. They have the 2024 pick from the Golden State Warriors, top 4 protected. As we're recording this, the Warriors are playing a basketball game. They've lost 6 straight. They're not good right now. Draymond Green's throwing a fit. Steph Curry's looking old because he's hurt, but when he plays, he's still very, very good. Andrew Wiggins forgot how to shoot. Like, it might be bad for the Warriors. I'm not ready to count them out. Shout out to some of my listeners. Eli, listener, Scott, who both have counted the Warriors out. Proud of you both, Eli and Scott. But I think the Blazers are likely to have they're going to have 2 first-round picks and maybe 2 first lottery picks. So we can talk broadly about kind of anyone in the first-round range. If I'm thinking of that, who do you like?
Yeah, trying to think of who's looked good versus maybe some of the Blazers' needs are a little bit challenging because entirely unexpectedly, most of the players who have looked good are undersized 2 guards. And I think that
a lot of guards on the list
might have a conniption if the Blazers draft a 6'2" combo guard. Even though there are some really good ones out there, I just don't think that that's necessarily the move for this team. So yeah, I think if you're trying to think of some maybe bigs or wings, there definitely are a few guys who have been high on draft boards, a few who maybe haven't quite popped the way we'd expect them to yet. I think one of the top names to definitely keep an eye on would be Justin Edwards over at Kentucky. He's a guard, but he's 6'7", 6'8", kind of plays a bigger guard role. The Wildcats just significantly struggled today against St. Joseph's because they are an incredibly young team. And so young teams are going to really struggle. And Edwards hasn't really popped as a scorer yet, but just watching his game, he's incredibly fluid. He's a high-level athlete, left-handed shooter. The outside shot hasn't quite been there yet, but the projections are that it's going to be there. And he's just a really good athlete. And he gets downhill really quickly. The projections for him defensively are really solid. A guy that I think is probably going to end up. A lot of mocks have had him top 5. He hasn't quite looked like the top 5 guy yet, although, Ron Holland in the G League hasn't looked like the top 5 guy yet either. So certainly there's plenty of time for that to change. It's nowhere close to June just yet. But Edwards is a guy where if he falls in that late lottery range, potentially that could be, depending on where, of course, those Portland picks end up, a guy that I would really like there. And then kind of sticking with the wings, Cody Williams is another one, a freshman at Colorado, younger brother of Jalen Williams, who has, of course, been extraordinarily good in the NBA for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Shout out Santa Clara Broncos coming out of the WCC there. Cody Williams, 3-point shooter. I think if he can be more consistent as an outside shooter, he's 6'8", big-bodied guy, kind of plays like a stretch 4 role. Really good rebounder, has been a very good passer in Colorado's first few games. I think those are 2 kind of wings in particular that I think are going to be available in that like 7 to 15 range where Portland conceivably might have 2 picks. And I wouldn't be surprised if those are guys they're taking a close look at, and certainly guys that I would be wanting to take a look at as potential future Blazers.
Yeah, I will say that I'm preparing for this because I know those names. I haven't watched them either, but I know those names because I subscribed to Rafael Barlow's NBA Big Board newsletter. So he got me caught up on Justin Edwards, and Cody Williams. Just prepping for this is a name I know. They're on my list. I kind of want to ask you about the guards because it would be maybe a crime, but at some point, you just have to pick good players and put them on the team. And I think that is the challenge for a team like the Blazers that are so talent poor. Let's talk about fit and maybe a little Isaiah Collier, because is there a point when you just have to do it? That's what we'll do in the second segment. But first, I want to tell my listeners about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And look, the NFL season, we're in the back half of the NFL season. Monday Night Football is happening right now. So you might have missed this week in betting on Monday Night Football, but guess what? You got basketball games all week. You got NHL games all week, and the NFL starts again on Thursday with a whole bunch of Thanksgiving games. So you can get in on the action. It's a great time to do so because right now, first-time users for FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets if they place a $5 money line bet and you win. So pick an outright winner in any sport that you want all week long. Put $5 on them to win, $5 on the money line. When you get it, when you win, when your team gets the dub, then you can play around with $150 in bonus bets and bets on things like spreads, player props, live odds. You can bet in game. You can bet futures bets if you're feeling froggy about who's going to win the MVP in the NBA or anything like that. But to do that, you got to go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. One more time for you, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. On. It's FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right. Still listening to Locked On Blazers. Still chatting with Andy Patton of Locked On College Basketball and Locked On Zags. Andy, the Blazers do have too many point guards. Like in the realm of who they have that's good and young on the team. Scoot Henderson is a guard who needs a lead guard who needs the ball in his hand. What he's going to be, we don't know. We've seen him play 5 NBA games. Some listeners are out on Scoot already. Guys, 5 games. It's 5. When we hit 35, hot takes can fly. When we hit 35, the hottest takes that you want, as spicy as you want to get. But I say 35 games before we get too spicy. But Anthony Simons is a 24-year-old who needs the ball in his hands, lead guard type. He might be a 2, but I think on offense, he's probably a 1. On defense, rather, he's probably a 1. On offense, he's a score guard. He can go score. Shaedon Sharpe increasingly looks like someone who needs the ball in his hands. These are probably the 3 best young players, with all due respect to DeAndre Ayton. But you look at the top of the draft board, and if the Blazers were to end up with a really high pick, is there a moment, or is there a level where someone like Isaiah Collier, who's climbing up draft boards, he's the hot name, point guard at UCLA, could he get to a level where you can't pass on him?
Point guard at USC for starters.
Where did I call him, UCLA?
Yes.
Oh, God, fight on, y'all. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
I think Collier is going to be the kind of player that's really, really hard to pass up on the draft. Like if there's somebody behind Collier that the Blazers feel is comparable and they play a different position, maybe, but I'm not sure they're going to see that guy because Collier's really, really, really good. And he has lived up to that expectation. #1 freshman in his class coming in, joined the Trojans. Of course, they returned Boogie Ellis, their senior guard, who's averaging about 18 a game. And it was kind of like, how are these two guys going to mesh together? Then they add Bronny James in the mix. Then Bronny James, of course, has the health issues, so he's not playing for this team right now. And Collier has been their lead guard. He's averaging 21 points a game through their first 4 games. They haven't played super high-level competition. They did open against Kansas State, a quality team in the Big 12, but he doesn't look like a great facilitator yet. He definitely looks like more of a combo guard. And again, he's 6'5", so he kind of falls into that category of a little bit of an undersized guard. I think he could definitely develop those point guard skills to be a more of a facilitator and a scorer at the next level. And frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if Portland or a team finds themselves in a situation where they're like, hey, we don't necessarily need a point guard, but it's him and then like a big gap in talent between the next player below him. And if that's the case, I mean, Portland's, you got to acquire talent at this point, figure out if that means, maybe moving some other pieces around or whatnot. But Collier is the kind of guy who could certainly alter a franchise. There are not a lot of players in the 2024 draft class right now that look like legitimate franchise changers. I don't think he's not generational or anything like that, but he could be that guy. And if Portland has a chance to get him and they don't see anybody else that they think could make that kind of impact, they might have to give it a shot. And I don't think Blazers fans are going to be too upset once they see Collier play. Yeah,
I think that's in some ways that's just kind of like, what is your theory on draft stuff, right? Sure. I'm probably more fit than talent, but I don't think you can be picky when you're as sort of talent poor as the Blazers are. Where do you kind of fall in that range? I know you're not maybe like the greatest or the most, into it draft guru, but you definitely follow the stuff super, super close. Yeah. What's your theory on that?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to go talent when you're in a situation like the Blazers. I think that that is what makes sense. If there was a wing out there, because that's the position that the Blazers could really use some help there. If there's a guy out there, get him. But I wouldn't want to see the Blazers draft. If they don't feel that confident about Justin Edwards or Cody Williams or later in the draft some of those other guys, and they're like, well, we'll just draft him because we need a 6'9" guy. And it's like, well, go draft the 6'4" guy and then trade one of your other guys to get that wing. There are alternatives to that, and certainly, I mean, the Blazers obviously made a huge decision to draft Scoot Henderson as opposed to, making another decision in drafting to try to fit around that roster that they already had. So it sure seems like Joe Cronin is willing to make those kind of decisions. And Collier there are a couple other guys. Jacoby Walter at Baylor's really, really good. Stephon Castle just got hurt, unfortunately, at UConn, but he's really good too. And those are guys that are definitely more combo guards than point guards. But, they might be guys where you're like, oh, maybe we can pass that up for a 7-foot guy instead. But Collier's kind of at the top of that list of like, he'd be hard to ignore if the Blazers, land second in the lottery or something, and he's there.
You mentioned the other guys' names. Is Collier enough better than them that he's the one that makes you have that conversation? Like, is Walter just like a decent kind of prospect and Collier's is cut above in your eyes, or what have you seen from them so far?
Yeah, that's where I would put him right now. I think Collier has a more well-rounded game. Walter, I mean, and this is a borderline lazy comparison because they're both Baylor guards, but Walter's kind of a lot like Keontae George, and Keontae George has looked good in the NBA so far, but he's a score-first combo guard. You're not sure what you're getting defensively. He doesn't really distribute the ball. Castle's a little harder to judge because he's hurt right now, but he does look very good, and I think he is going to be UConn just put Jordan Hawkins in the league, and I think he's going to be a comparable talent potentially to that. But Collier's more of a franchise type of like guy you build around, where those guys are more just like they're guys. And the Blazers have guys. They have Shaedon Sharpe. They have Anthony Simons. Like those guys are more comparable to that, where Collier might be a bit more of a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sort of the place where, again, it's like early in the season and we haven't really seen much of Scoot Henderson, but I think like the thing that the Blazers are missing right now is like, okay, he's the piece that makes all of this work. You hope Shaedon Sharpe turns into that. I think there's some hope that Scoot Henderson turns into that. But if there is someone in the draft who you're like, he's the piece that makes it work, to me, then you start saying fit be damned because you get there. Let's talk bigs. We haven't mentioned centers yet. The Blazers for very brief period this year, center rich. They were rich. They were rich in talented centers. It didn't last long. And I think with Robert Williams's murky future, getting a young big could be valuable. Do you draft him third? Well, no, maybe not. But I think there are some names at the top of the draft I'd love to pick your brain about. And that's what we'll do to close the show in the third segment. But first, I want to tell y'all about PrizePicks. Daily fantasy made easy. I play PrizePicks. I use the app. You can also go to prizepicks.com if you want to play, and you can play with whatever sport you're looking for. So this time of year, you got NFL games, you got NHL games, or if you're me, you got NBA games. I'm a basketball person. That's what I'm comfortable with. So it's PrizePicks setting the lines, and I am picking more or less than the projections they set. So it's things like points, rebounds, assists, blocks, steals. You pick between 2 and 6 players on every entry. And then from there, it's just you versus the projections. So you're not playing against sharks, you're not playing against the field. You're just playing against the PrizePicks stat line. So go take advantage of this. Win some money. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That means if you're a first-time user, they're matching you dollar for dollar up to $100. You want to put in $25? PrizePicks is going to throw you $25. You want to put in $50? Throw you $50. But to do that, you got to go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use that promo code LockedOnNBA. It's PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. Still a past first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still is the Locked On Blazers. Still chatting here with Andy Patton, host of Locked On College Basketball, that you can find 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, and the host of Locked On Zags, which you can find 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. My man Andy's talking college hoops a bunch, so I sent him an email and I said, can you come talk college hoops with me, please? I need some insights. So we talked about the wings. I'm definitely going to try to check out Justin Edwards this week. Cody Williams is on the list. I have a physical list right here. I'm holding up my notebook if you're watching on YouTube. A physical list right here. There's some bigs though. Let's talk big man. Who do you like who's in that sort of center and above range, or power forward to center range, who could be available in the lottery?
Yeah, there's a couple guys. One who's gotten a lot of press and hasn't put up the stats that would necessarily. There's a couple guys that haven't quite put up the numbers that would that would kind of indicate the press that they've been getting. One of them is Donovan Clingan for UConn. We talked already about Stephon Castle. Clingan is a guy who was a monster last year in a backup role behind Adama Sanogo. He put up huge numbers in like 13 minutes per game. And it was kind of similar to Zach Edey's freshman year. And everybody's like, all right, this dude's going to completely pop as a sophomore. And he's kind of, and I don't want to direct across compare him to Chet Holmgren because he is not like Chet Holmgren in a lot of ways, but in one way, they're very similar in the sense that they are incredibly efficient and they'll get you, 8, 12, 15, 18 points on like 7 shots. Like they just really high efficiency around the rim. The main difference is that Clingan has absolutely no outside shot. So he's a low post scorer. He's a really good shot blocker. I think he's 7'2" and he looks every bit of that 7'2". He's an absolute behemoth of a guy. He's a really good scorer around the rim. The other one that stands out to me is Ade Mara at UCLA, and UCLA they haven't played their best basketball yet. They have a ton of new freshmen coming in, a lot of international players. I think Coach Mick Cronin's still kind of trying to figure out what all the pieces look like. Mara's listed at 7'3" and looks every bit the same part as well. He's a big dude coming over from Spain. He's gotten some what I consider kind of lazy comparisons to the Gasol brothers because he's 7 feet tall and from Spain. But he also is somebody who can stretch the floor a little bit. Big-bodied guy, can score around the rim, space the floor. I think those are two guys who you're seeing mocked in the lottery a lot. And while the numbers aren't quite, Mara's only averaging 7 points and 2 boards. He's only played 3 games, of course, for UCLA. But I think those are guys who, when you see them, especially in workouts, when we get into that kind of workout pre-draft season, those are two guys that their size, their mobility is going to kind of really stand out in a significant way.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll ask you this. How confident are you that the Warriors are going to miss the playoffs? Are you Team Eli, Team Scott?
Yeah, I the Warriors have not looked good. I mean, Klay Thompson looks cooked. I think there's a good chance the Warriors, I think they're going to rebound and play better for the rest of the season, but I think there's a good chance they do miss the playoffs. I mean, the West is pretty loaded.
You heard it here first. The Warriors are cooked. They're cooked. They're up 7 with, I'll just timestamp while we're recording this. They're up 7 with like 5 minutes left in the first half at home against the Rockets. Losers of 6 straight at time of record. So I don't know either. The West is good enough that one of the teams that I think is decent is going to miss the play-in altogether. There's just too many teams going for it. I'm a little nervous about saying that the Warriors are going to miss the playoffs, but I think it's absolutely in the cards. Absolutely in the cards. In the way that when they started 6-2, I was like, oh, they're freaking good again. So I do kind of think the Blazers have at least a decent chance as we sit here right now in frigging November before Thanksgiving of getting 2 picks. And if you did have 2 picks, I think using the second one on one of these interesting bigs would really appeal to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you want your only lottery pick. And this is like, the cart is just like, you can't even see it from the horse right now. But like, if you only have one lottery pick, I wouldn't want to use that on someone who can't start. Right. I wouldn't want to say, okay, welcome. You play behind DeAndre Ayton. There's 13 minutes a night for you because DeAndre plays 34 minutes or 35 minutes a night. Like, but if you have 2 lottery picks, I think that to me, then you like Mara is like, okay. Clingan is like, interesting. What about my guy, Kel'el Ware, Oregon Duck legend? How's he doing?
Mike, I am not even kidding you. I pulled up Kel'el Ware's numbers while you were talking because I was like, there's one more big that I want to talk about. I was going to interrupt you to bring him up, so I'm glad that you threw it to me. Ware's been great. He's been fantastic for Indiana. I think the fit at Oregon was not there. I know there's probably a lot of Duck fans who listen to this who aren't going to love it, but a lot of times 5 stars don't seem to fit in Dana Altman's offense. I'm not sure why they have so many issues with talented players coming to that program and not necessarily performing. Where is a better fit at Indiana. They're using him, I think, in a way that's more complementary to his skill set, but he's also just improved. I mean, he's shooting 43% from 3 right now for the Hoosiers. He's improved his free throw percentage. He's improved his 2-point percentage. He's averaging 16.5 points, 9.5 boards. Now, Indiana doesn't look very good, and I think that the preseason expectations for them as a team have kind of significantly dampened, but that's no fault of Ware's. He looks like the big that Oregon fans thought he was going to be. He's can space the floor. He can block shots. He's a decent rebounder. Indiana's played a lot of not very good teams, and he's kind of feasted on them. So I'm very curious to see how he performs in some of their better games. They just played Louisville, who granted is also not very good. But once they get into Big Ten play and we get to see them match up against, the Zach Edey's of the world and some of the other bigs in that conference, it'll be interesting to see how he looks. But his set of skills would be really great in Portland. I thought he was a good fit for the Blazers if he came out last year, particularly if they could sneak him in the second round, because he didn't look like a first-round pick last year. He wisely chose to come back to school. And now if they want to draft him, I suspect they're going to have to use probably that Golden State pick if it ends up in the lottery or right around there.
Yeah, the ninth pick in the draft from the Golden State Warriors. That's right.
Yes. There you go. I love it. No, where would be a really good fit for Portland, I think.
Yeah, he was supposed to be a lottery pick, in this last draft class. So for him to get back there, I feel like it's a change of scenery doesn't always help, but I'm glad to hear it's helping with him. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's feast week. It is the beginning of a big fun week in college basketball where teams go to warm places, and it's actually a secret vacation for college kids. But they play basketball while they're there. I don't know if it's that big of a secret when you're in Maui and the Bahamas. But what are you excited to watch? What are some games or some teams that if me, a novice, and I've got maybe Wednesday and Thursday, a little Friday afternoon, Friday morning off. What should I check out?
Yeah, the Maui Invitational has already started. Gonzaga lost to Purdue today as we're recording this on Monday evening. Tennessee, it beat Syracuse. Tennessee and Purdue is going to be an incredible basketball game on Tuesday. Fantastic matchup there. Not a ton of NBA talent necessarily there. Dalton Knecht is a name to watch for Tennessee, though. He's been extremely good. And then Atlantis is going to be really fun, too. And, your Tar Heels are going to be there, of course. You got Memphis and Michigan are two teams that have a lot of high-level athletes, guys who could be NBA players there. Arkansas, they put a bunch of dudes in the NBA last year, and they reloaded with a bunch of guys that might be NBA players, too. In fact, another name I'll toss out for Blazers fans to keep an eye on is Trevon Brazile, the 6'9" wing forward, kind of 3-4 hybrid for the Razorbacks. He was hurt most of last year, so we didn't really get to see him, but he's extremely talented. And I'm projecting a potential championship in Atlantis of the Tar Heels in Arkansas. So if that happens, Mike, you'll get a good shot to watch Brazile play. He's really talented.
Last year, the Blazers were in the PK80, and Brandon Miller was just. I had to watch 4 overtimes of Alabama and Carolina, and I
was at that game. That was a wild one.
Yeah, it was. I had a 2-day-old kid. It was a long game to watch Carolina lose. So I don't know if I'm emotionally ready to put my now 1-year-old through that. But hey, we'll figure it out. Andy, thank you so much for joining the program. This was a whole bunch of fun, and I'm just going to commit you to it now. You're going to be back because we're going to need more of this, because the Blazers are going to be a team that thinks about the future all year long. Check Andy out. Locked On College Basketball, Locked On Zags. Anything else you want to plug while you're here?
No, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter, Andy Patton CBB, if you want. I don't post on there nearly as often as I used to, but you can still follow me there anyway. Mike, this was a lot of fun, and I absolutely looking forward to coming back.
All right. Well, Andy is we didn't call him out, but a low-key Blazer fan and a local guy. So you'll see him at the Moda Center. Make sure you're checking out Locked On College Basketball. It's if you're like me and you're just about to get into it, what a great place to start every day, wherever you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube. Dear friends, dear listeners, like I said, Malcolm Brogdon probably going to play, sounds like, against the Phoenix Suns. And that means Wednesday's show, tomorrow's show, as you were listening to this, we will recap that game. Then the Blazers come back home and play the Utah Jazz. That means what do we got? We got recaps all week. And then we will look ahead to the weekend to close this week, Friday. The Blazers on Sunday are going to play a familiar face. He's a point guard for the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll talk a little bit about that in Friday's show and some other stuff. It's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts. So do me a favor, tell your friends, and then come back for tomorrow's show. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.